Yeah.
And nobody seemed to realise. And I can remember walking through the audience wanting to tell everybody, that's David Bowie playing.
Yeah, nobody had, well, very few people had a clue. I guess the first couple of rows knew, because they weren't big on lighting in that tent. It was like, which was great. I actually preferred it that way, you know.
What name is more synonymous with spectacle than David Bowie? He lit up the stage figuratively and literally every time he sang for a crowd. When the lights weren't on, he was more private than you'd expect. He didn't want to let everyone in, so he used costumes and makeup to hide behind. That was true in his final days. He seemed to try everything he could to hide the pain of his failing health. A newly found conversation before his passing reveals more about his life and death. Bowie's final performance. David Bowie's concerts were known for being spectacular. They were shows full of pyrotechnics, costumes, and more. He did his best to keep up that image until the end. Signs of poor health were already apparent when David Bowie gave his penultimate performance in Prague. He was in such serious pain that he had to step off the stage for 2 performances. When he came back, he said, quote, "Let me tell you what's happening here. I've got a severely pinched nerve, and I'm having intense pains across my shoulder and into my chest. So I'm going to keep going as best I can. But I must let you know I'm in terrible pain, okay?" The pain didn't go away. He performed 3 songs, but then had to step off the stage again, but was just as apologetic as before when he returned. He sat on a stool and said, quote, "This doesn't usually happen, so look on it as a bonus. They just gave me some pills to try and take the pain away, so we'll see how it goes. Anyway, let's keep going. How you doing?" He was greeted with cheers and tried to keep up the performance. That only lasted for so long. He eventually had to say, "I'm sorry, folks, but I just can't continue. I'm in too much pain. I have to bid you goodnight. I'm so sorry." He was taken to the hospital for emergency surgery, but got back on stage 3 days later. His final album was released 2 days before the end and reached the top of the global charts. David Bowie died of liver cancer January 10th, 2016. The supposed final interview. David was a showman but didn't do many interviews. He preferred to let his music speak for itself. One interview had been considered the final one he ever gave for years. It was a behind-the-scenes feature for the DVD release of the Ricky Gervais sitcom Extras. When asked about why he chose to join the show, he said,
"Well, as you probably know, my background's in serious acting before I started doing the writing, singing thing. And so something like doing the extras is a piece of cake for me, really. And it was fun working with Rick, showing him pointers, maybe new ways of approaching comedy that he hadn't really thought about before, I think."
David and Ricky also became friends after they met during the first series of the British version of The Office. They got to know each other personally. It was only natural he'd be offered a part on the show. Extras allowed David to play a caricature of himself, just as other English stars, such as Sir Ian McKellen and Orlando Bloom, had already done on other episodes. It was an opportunity he took with just the right attitude. David seemed in the highest possible spirits in this final interview. He played up the character he created for it the entire time. He admitted he enjoyed contributing to the comedy of the show, saying,
"You know, I've been writing jokes for him, and he assures me they'll be in the future episodes. So it's been very fulfilling, this whole experience."
The official David Bowie Facebook page confirmed the idea. Mark Riley also believed it, and he's spoken to the Starman more times than almost anyone. He interviewed him 5 times and has a 71-episode podcast series called A to Z of David Bowie, involved reviewing 50 years of BBC archives. That's where he found one last interview. It shows David speaking on the phone to a late-night specialist jazz show. He discusses his desire to create a jazz album and briefly touched on his health. What the interview could reveal about his life and death. The conversation in David's final interview shows him talking to Courtney Pine, host of Radio 2's Jazz Crusade. The fact that he called in to a tiny jazz show shows his love of the genre. He told her all about how he'd fallen in love with jazz at an early age and believes a saxophone was probably the first instrument he ever owned.
Thanks very much for asking, Courtney. Yeah, I'm doing fine. I've been working out a lot this last year, and I'm back on course, I think.
This feels like it could be an indirect way for him to mention his heart attack, or more likely heart attacks. He never even got close to mentioning them in any other interviews. Although he sounded healthy at the time, the term "back on course" is odd for his condition. He received an angioplasty or a stent in an artery. Most patients who receive this procedure get back to their normal routine within months. How long did he take to recover, and what were his final years like? He stayed so private during them that many friends and family didn't even know about his heart attack until after the fact. It's also concerning that the medical team didn't notice glaring signs of his condition. Tom asked an emergency room doctor what they'd do if they found a man like Bowie who complained of chest and shoulder pain. They said they wouldn't have believed Bowie's self-diagnosis of a pinched nerve. The pain from a pinched nerve tends to be localized to one spot. If he had only been experiencing pain in his shoulder, that might have been an accurate diagnosis. However, a heart attack spreads pain across a wide area, such as from chest to shoulder. It's a more likely diagnosis based on his symptoms. What would the doctor who was questioned have done? They would have rushed to complete a range of tests, such as an EEG and blood tests. They would have also kept David overnight for observation. They also said if they knew the patient was David Bowie, a rock star and heavy smoker, they'd, quote, get the tests done even faster. Why was the interview hidden? Another question fans may have about David's actual final interview is why it was hidden for so long. One reason is that the radio show he called into was too niche to reach a large audience. No one could have known it would be his final interview. Otherwise, they might have saved it despite the lack of mass appeal. Bowie was, fortunately, a better record keeper than most. The BBC wiped a tape of his prototype Spiders from Mars appearance, but he had a recording of his own. It's as if he knew that everything he said should be restored and stored just in case it was the last. What about his estate? David was passionate about more than just his music. He fell in love with the Indonesian island of Bali when he and Iggy Pop went there in the early 80s. It inspired his music for years. The 1984 track Tumble and Twirl was inspired by that first trip. He even learned the language. David made Indonesian versions of his music. He sang You Belong in Rock and Roll in Indonesian in 1991, and also half of Don't Let Me Down and Down in Indonesian. David is now buried on the beautiful island of Bali. He may have known at some point he was dying because he wrote a detailed will. It sets out all his final wishes for his life and money. Part of it detailed how his remains should be handled. He wanted to be cremated and have his ashes scattered in a Buddhist ritual. The rest of the will stipulates exactly what should happen to his estate, which was worth approximately $100 million. The majority went to his wife, Iman, along with their Soho apartment. His son Duncan received a 25% share of the estate, his daughter Alexandria got another 25%, and his rural hideaway on Little Tonshi Mountain. $2 million went to Corinne Schwab, his personal assistant and rumored ex-lover. He also gave $1 million to Marion Skeen, the nanny who helped raise Duncan. Now it's time to hear from you. What's your favorite David Bowie memory? Let us know in the comments section below.